to work. And
Yes.
after our not unexpected news this morning, well, just a few minutes ago, I'm really sorry, but we know. So we do have our work cut out for us, don't we? Getting our country in check. We the half, we the other half, we are the half, we are the ones. Anyway, so I want.
You're muted, Cara.
Now I'm not, right? Okay, so
Yes.
I been muted this whole time?
No, just the last 20 seconds.
Okay, thank you. Welcome to the 2021 annual meeting of the West LA Democratic Club. I'm Cara Robin, as I think most of you know, president. I'm running again for president. And what is so really crazy when you think about it is our last in-person meeting was 1 year ago. Our last time we all were able to be together was at our annual meeting 2020. So, you know, wow, how things have just, you know, gone around and changed, and it's just so crazy. And but we're here, you know, and I feel that hopefully we'll be able to get together again, non-virtually in the not too distant future. You know, I think things are looking up. We're going to be hearing from Dr. Roy, later in the meeting on the latest in the COVID. He has been going around. He's a past president of the Medical Society, and he'll be giving us the up-to-date information on the vaccinations and all. I'm really upset actually at what just happened. I thought that I'm so proud of Jamie Raskin and our managers and our Ted and everyone. I get speechless, you know, to think that people are so thick and so self-interested, you know, that they can't do the right thing for our country. And I think we all want to give Jamie and the managers a big hand and thank you. And it shows who we really are, you know, who we as Democrats, who we as our club, and as real citizens, you know, of this country, who care for our country, what we believe in. We will prevail. I say we will prevail. Anyway, so it's been a year, you know, it's been a crazy year, and we've actually done very well despite it, having had many programs, you know, even though in virtually, and they've been great. Like last month when we had our big celebration of the inauguration with everybody coming to speak, and you know, we have so many friends in our elected officials are all really such good friends of ours. Several on the call today, and I'm so happy when we call on them, they come and they share their expertise and their insight and just their friendships with us. Last year we had, oops, pardon me, I gotta shut my phone down. I've been getting emails and texts all day, as you can imagine. I forgot what I was just saying. I'm sorry, I just got off track. Anyway, we had these wonderful meetings last year. We had meetings on everything, you know, and Ted Luke came to speak. He chaired our meeting last, our last in-person meeting. And we had our environmental meetings. We had Kevin De Leon. And, you know, one of the things that I did want to say is that when we had the Valiant Women of the Vote, that great celebrating a woman's 100 years of the vote, one of the speakers we had invited and who was all set to speak with us was then Assemblywoman Shirley Weber. And she was going to be one of our speakers, one of our illustrious women, valiant women of the vote. And then at the last minute, they all were called back into session. That was the budget crunch. And the legislature was sequestered for the weekend up in Sacramento. So, you know, it didn't happen. So aren't we lucky that we have her here with us today? I'm really good. thrilled about that. So thank you, now Secretary Weber, for joining us, for not having a big budget meeting. It is our annual meeting, and we do want to have, we have some reports. I'd like to bring up Tracy Gore, our membership chair, to give you a report on where we're doing in our membership. And as you know, it's been tough because we didn't have our two big membership fundraisers, which is our summer party and our holiday party every year, where we do get mostly our members renewing. So Tracy, do you want to report?
Hi, everybody. We have close to 260 wonderful members. I can't get over what was accomplished last year. If everybody had a friend join or a relative, that would be even better. But anyway, we appreciate you coming to our meetings, and hopefully this coming year we're going to be able to meet in person at our wonderful barbecue and holiday party. And thank you so much for sticking with us. And we have even more to do this coming year because we have to support the Congress, the president, and our country. And our wonderful, let's a shout out to our caregivers. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. We should have a treasurer's report now also from our treasurer, Susan Blanchard, who is also running for re-election, but she has a migraine, and she's going to be sending the report over to me if she's not on. I don't think she's on, and I will give it later in the meeting. I'll give her report for her because she's not here. You know, so here we are about ready to hear from our featured speaker. And one of the things, you know, because this is the Black History Month, and it's something that we're celebrating, paying tribute to the generations of African Americans who struggled with adversity to achieve full citizenship in American society. We know this, and especially during the last cycle when we saw an historic election turnout, you know, as we know, for the presidential, Senate, congressional, and many other races. And God bless Georgia. Whoa, did that do it for us? So we could see so clearly the power of Americans exercising their right to vote. And one of the biggest opportunities for our party is to continue engaging a diverse electorate. And that'll increase power for communities nationally, and especially, as we know, in marginalized communities. And we know what happens in this pandemic to marginalized communities also. So we are so happy that our club had led these huge efforts to contribute to the successes of the Democratic Party this election season. We really were out there. You know, we are full-on partners in West Side Democratic headquarters. We were founding members in 2004 with 3 other clubs, and it's grown to 10, 11 other clubs. And we really work, and we're also in partnerships with other groups around the city and around the country. And we really do our work, and I thank you, and it's not going to stop. We are going to keep going. So we know of the historic contributions that communities of color and the Black community have given to our democracy. Know this, and including the expansion of civic efforts from past efforts to advance the Voting Rights Act and current efforts to fight to win in key states across the country. And so what better way and opportunity for us to celebrate, as I said earlier, and recognize this by welcoming our state's first Black Secretary of State and only the 5th African-American to serve as a state constitutional officer in California's 170-year history. The Secretary of State serves as the state's chief elections officer, among many other duties. And the Honorable Dr. Shirley Nash Weber is our current California Secretary of State by the governor, appointed by Governor Gavin Newsom and sworn into office on January 29th, 2021. She was born to sharecroppers in Hope, Arkansas, during the segregationist Jim Crow era. And she has fought to secure and expand civil rights for all Californians. Secretary Weber attended the University of California, UCLA, go Bruins, where she received her BA, MA, and PhD. Prior to receiving her doctorate, she became a professor at San Diego State University and also taught at Cal State LA and LACC. She retired from the Department of Africana Studies after 40 years as a faculty member and serving several terms as department chair. Before her appointment, Secretary Weber served 4 terms as an assembly member representing California's 79th Assembly District, which includes parts of the city of San Diego, as well as several cities and communities in the San Diego region. She also served as a member and chair of the San Diego Unified School District and has twice served as a California elector, including chairing the California College of Presidential Electors on December 14th, 2020. So it is my great pleasure to introduce to us the Honorable Shirley Weber, Secretary of State.
Well, thank you so much. I think I'm unmuted, I believe. Is that
No,
right?
we can hear you.
You can hear me? Great, great, then that's wonderful. I want to thank you for the opportunity to be with you. I mean, this club and its membership is fairly legendary in a party. And, as I look out and see so many of you who even here attending a meeting on Saturday via Zoom, it says to me very clearly that yes, this is a party that's truly active and engaged. And so I'm really honored to be here with you today. I was honored when the governor tapped me to be Secretary of State. It was not something that I had applied for or even thought about. In fact, probably a year ago when I would have come here, if someone had said, you're going to be Secretary of State in a year, I would probably still be laughing because that was obviously not on my things to do. But the reality is being in the assembly wasn't on my thing to do either. Tony Atkins convinced me that I'd be a good legislator. And I fought her for a while and realized that fighting her was futile. So I decided it would be important for me, obviously, to go to the legislature and remain, keep her as a friend. But I'm honored to be with you today. I mean, there's so much happening in the United States right now with regards to, as you know, what's happening in Washington, but just all around us that gives me great concern. And when I was thinking about this position, when I was offered it and given a very short time to respond, I always believe that there's a reason and a time for me to do whatever there is to do. You know, I've studied African-American history all of my life, raised up in Los Angeles, as some of you know, to a family that was a great family, but we had no resources. We had very little resources coming to California. My father fleeing the Klan who wanted to lynch him. And because he stood up for himself at the way station. And as a result, he was sneaked out of Hope, Arkansas at night in a wagon, taken to Texarkana and put on a train. And my dad could barely read to come to California where my mother's mother was living at the time. And he worked very hard for 3 or 4 months. And in the 1st of December was able to pay for his wife and 6 children to come to California. So we came on the train 3 or 4 months after my dad had been here in August. We came December 1. And I always tell people we came to I was born in Hope, Arkansas, and that we left Hope because there was no hope. And he believed very strongly that California had opportunities for his children and for his family. And he worked every day of his life to make that possible. And so, I come out of a family that has strong values and strong beliefs. I also come out of a family that believes strongly in voting. My dad was never allowed to vote in Hope, Arkansas. My grandparents, my dad's father and mother never voted because they died before the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And so voting was always something very important. Education was important to my dad and voting was important because he felt very strongly that it didn't matter what you achieved. If you could not have any sense of control over your essence, your rights and your dignity, then they could take it from you. Just take your land, take your property, take your dignity, abuse your family. And there was nothing you could do about it because there was no justice and there was no opportunity for those to even get justice in Hope, Arkansas. And so my dad realized that he needed to bring his family somewhere else. And he did. We came to California. Because he believed so strongly in voting, the first thing he did was he registered to vote for the first time in his life, he and my mom. And I think they voted in their first election like in 1952 with Eisenhower and Adlai Stevenson. I remember those names in my household and my family's household. But the interesting thing was my mom worked the polls because she believed so strongly in voting. And eventually my family's house, when we moved to 45th Street in Los Angeles, became the voting poll. You know, the precinct was 351 West 45th Street, which was our home. And so it was interesting because my dad thought voting was so important. They said, you could have it in your garage. And he goes, oh no, you have to have it in the living room. You know, it's when people are doing some important work and they shouldn't be out there where the dog was and this and that. So he moved all furniture into the den and voting took place in our living room for every election, special elections, primaries, general elections, it didn't matter. Our house was a voting place and we kids knew that we'd go through the back door, through the driveway on days of voting because people were doing important business in the living room. So it's you know, voting has been a part of our family's DNA, all of my 8 brothers and sisters, ever since we've been alive, and we would probably never not vote for fear that our parents would come back and rise up and get us as a result of not participating in this enterprise that they fought so hard to achieve. As I look at that, it's really, I told some folks it's quite ironic that coming out of Hope, Arkansas, in a family that was intimidated and never allowed to vote, that all of a sudden my dad's daughter now is responsible for 40 million people in California and protecting their right to vote. So it's really kind of ironic as we look at California's history and where we are in terms of achieving this. You know, I in the legislature, if I had been here last year, I would have been talking to you about my social justice bills and the kinds of legendary things we've done. And I'm known as the person who people believe that I'm very courageous. And I've never really believed I was courageous. I just figure I do what's right. And that if you do what's right, somehow or another, it'll work out in the end. That those who care about you will continue to support you, and those who don't care about you never cared about you in the first place. So you really haven't, as my dad said, no love lost. You didn't lose anybody. You know, those.
You muted.
I didn't touch anything. It said the host did, so I don't know. But anyway, I've unmuted myself now. So much of my legislation has been about social justice and equal opportunity, whether it's been in dealing with law enforcement. Some of you may know that California, we have the first ever mandatory racial profiling bill. Obama tried to get it at a federal level and could only get it as a recommendation. In California, it is mandated. AB 953, one of my bills, mandates a reporting of every stop that's done in California and the consequences and outcomes of those stops and who was stopped. The issue of use of force, some of you are familiar with 392, was a bill that changed the definition in California for when you can use lethal force. It can no longer be just when you think it is reasonable. It has to be when it is necessary. And we also changed the fleeing felon law that says that you can shoot a person in the back if you believe they have committed a felony, not that they have. And we changed that law so that you cannot shoot a person in the back who's running away unless that person has committed a crime that you know has injured people, shot people, killed people, and they have the capacity or the ability to do likewise again. Otherwise, some kid stealing something out of a store cannot be shot in the back by the police because he is not a threat to anyone else. And so we changed that law when we changed the use of force law. So the fleeing felon law that had been in existence for over 150, 170 years was changed in California 3 years ago. So much of the things I've done, I did the jury selection bill last year that basically talked about women and minorities not being on juries and creating an alternative system that allowed people to appeal. And so that they could not just be simply thrown off juries as one of the choices that they could make. They had to justify it because women and minorities were 4 and 5 times more likely to be taken off of juries than white men. And as a result, then the juries were not a reflection of the people who were being tried or not a reflection of the community in which people lived. So AB 3070 was a bill that was passed and signed by the governor into law this past year. What's coming up in addition to that now is obviously the reparations bill, that California is the first state in the nation to actually have a reparations bill. There are many small cities that have them. The federal government has yet to do reparations for African Americans for slavery in this country. And as a result, we passed AB 3121 this past year, signed by the governor, and the commission task force to work on the issue of reparations in California is being organized at this point and will go into effect the 1st of July. I'll be testifying this week before Congress concerning reparations and the bill that they have, HR 40, and hopefully encouraging them to do likewise. But California is the 5th largest economy in the world. And we believe very, very strongly that rather than sitting and waiting for Washington to do things, we have to lead. So those are some of the things. Some of you participated in Prop 17. I was a co-author, joint author on ACA 6, which was the bill that says you can vote if you are on parole. And fortunately, California adopted that this past year, and that will add thousands of young people, individuals to our rolls who are doing parole. Some of them spent 20 and 30 years already serving their sentence and are out, and yet because they're still on parole, cannot vote. And parole sometimes can be a very long process that's there. I was a part of authoring a number of pieces of legislation that basically assisted ex-felons in making sure that they have their information correct and that they know that they have the right to vote, because most of them didn't know they had the right to vote, and their parole and the probation officers never told them that they had the right to vote. And so as a result, many individuals never voted. I remember when I was running for the assembly in 2012. And there was a young man who worked very hard on my campaign. He was there, he was holding signs on the freeway, he did a lot of stuff. And he said to me one day, he said, you know, this is the first time in my life that I really wish I could vote. And I said, why can't you vote? And he whispered, he says, I'm an ex-felon. I said, what does that have to do with anything? How long have you been out? He said 15 years. He'd been out of jail and off parole, and he didn't know he had the right to vote. And so we got him registered and he voted. And I realized that it was interesting to me that many of the lobbyists in Sacramento didn't even know that, because they'd listened to the news of what's happening in Mississippi and other states, and that if once you commit a felony, you can no longer vote again. And people actually believe that. And so as a result, we did some legislation to make sure that they were given that information, they were given the opportunity to register to vote, and that those who were also not in prison, but in our jails as a result of AB 109, that they have the right to vote. We actually litigated that. And our Secretary of State fought us on it, but fortunately her term ended. We won, her term ended, she appealed it. And when Alex Padilla became Secretary of State, he withdrew the lawsuit, the appeal. And so therefore we in one day enfranchised something like 47,000 people who had the right to vote, who were in our jails. We also made it possible for nonprofits to go into jails and register people to vote, and for them to get a ballot in jail if they want to, because the only people in California who cannot vote are those who are in state prison. Everyone else had the right to vote. And so we're going to make sure that people understand that, because that's what California, that's California's law. And I was listening to your conversation when you were talking about the right to vote and what we're going to do. I was at the National Association of Secretaries of States, and most of them are Republican. And they were talking about the fact that there are probably about 38 bills, I think it is, in 38 states that really are introducing bills to limit and restrict the voting rights. And people in California want to do likewise. They don't get much wind in it because they don't get out of committee, those kinds of things, but they want ID voting and all those kinds of things. And on the surface, those things don't sound that bad, but when the implementation comes into place, you understand what the game is. I told someone, they were asking me, I said, it's just like the literacy test in the South. It sounds reasonable that if you're gonna vote, you should be able to read, right? But when you ask me to read and you tell me to tell my literacy, you ask me to recite a US Constitution. And then you go to the guy behind me who's white and says, what's your name? And because he knows his name, he's literate, but I'm illiterate because I can't quote the entire Constitution. So as a result, it's really clear that the implementation of these things is really where people are not getting their voting rights and having their voting rights denied. So as a Secretary of State, I consider it quite an honor. I'm not only dealing with elections, but we also deal with small businesses. We deal with nonprofits. I'm also the keeper of the archives and the state seals and those kinds of things that are really important. We're also responsible for California museums and California libraries. So we hope to be able to utilize all those resources to really help California understand what California is really all about, to distinguish ourselves. We want to engage in a very, and as some of you mentioned it, a very serious civic education responsibility, because it is clear from looking at Washington, a lot of people have no idea what it means to defend the Constitution. A lot of folks who are supposed to be intelligent have no idea, and therefore they can promulgate any kind of idea and concept on the public because they have no idea. People don't understand the importance of the balance of power. They don't understand how fragile this democracy really is. And so as a result, we want to make sure that kind of information is discussed. A lot of people don't understand the Voting Rights Act of 1965. I have people tell me, well, if we get rid of the Voting Rights Act, Black people won't be able to vote. That's not the reason why Black people have the right to vote. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 removes some barriers that that individuals and states had created to block the right to vote. But they have the right to vote, whether that passes or not. But nonetheless, that's an important piece of ensuring people's right to vote. And so we're going to engage in a number of conversations and activities around the state. You'll get notice of it, where we really are going to talk about the Voting Rights Act of 1965. What did it mean, and how is it related, and what is going on right now across the nation to help people really understand why it's so important that we're vigilant about the things that we believe in, and not just simply willing to give up all kinds of things as a result of it. So we're working hard to do some of those things, and so hopefully you will be able to be involved with it and engage with us. I'm going to stop at this point. I think this is where I'm supposed to stop at 1:30 and have you ask me questions for 10 or 15 minutes. But let me just say that, I have, as people ask me, I have no idea why the governor chose me to be Secretary of State, other than the fact that he knows that that I'm pretty courageous when it comes to fighting for the things I believe in. That voting is extremely important in California and has been extremely important in my life. And I'm uncompromising about those values. I'm uncompromising about the rights of everyone to have their justice. I'm uncompromising about people's right to stand up and to be heard. I'm uncompromising about whether you're African-American or LGBT or whatever, that you have a right to exist in this country and not be harassed by others, that you should have the same opportunities as everyone else. And I'm uncompromising about our kids and the education that they need to have. And I know that these things were important in my life, that had it not been some courageous teachers at Holmes Avenue Elementary School in the projects of the Pueblos of Los Angeles, I would have been lost. I'm very conscious of the damage that can be done as well as the good that can be done. And so as a result, I don't give up easily. I fight to the end. I generally win. But if I don't, as they say, we'll fight till hell freezes over, and then we'll get up and put on the ice skates and fight some more. I mean, that's just the type of person I am, because these things are extremely important. Who we are, this democracy, the things that we believe in are extremely important. And I guess probably a little bit 6 weeks ago, someone was talking to me and I said, this democracy is very fragile, because it's dependent upon sometimes the goodwill of individuals and the right of those and the responsibility that those individuals accept and stand up for. But democracy is fragile anywhere. I said, and so we have to be conscious of that and constantly fight for it. And I think we saw that on January 6th, that it is a fragile democracy, that you can't be silent about it. You can't be quiet about it. You can't pretend like it will solve the problems themselves. We have seen the growth of hate and racism in this country that shocks most of us who believe that kind of stuff was behind us. But the question is, have we actually fought hard each and every day to sustain it? And that's what's important. I often say to my colleagues at the Capitol, when we're dealing with issues of social justice, that social justice and equality and equal opportunity are rare flowers, and they require constant attention and nurturing and feeding and sunshine and care. But hatred and discrimination is a weed, and it grows best in neglect, just like in your garden. It grows best in neglect. And when we stop focusing on these issues, when we think, oh, we've done it, I don't want to do that anymore, we are neglecting the garden of life that we've been given. And we will wake up and discover that these weeds have grown and have begun to choke out the beauty that we think that should be alive. And so I encourage people to understand that this journey is a life journey. And if you believe in these principles, you will fight for them every day of your life, because you will understand what happens when you stop fighting. And often we've said it's not the noise of my enemies, but it's the silence of my friends. And that is so very true, that those of us who, and we see this in Washington, people hoping that it will go away, that it will solve itself, that we don't have to stand up and fight, that it's too difficult. We now see the beast that we have created, that they have created. And it happens simply because we refuse to be attentive and be courageous about the things we believe in. So I look forward to the challenge of being the Secretary of State. I know we have some great things ahead, and we have some challenge. We're going to have folks who are challenging us in terms of the right to vote, trying to impose kinds of restrictions on individuals. And so I see this as a moment in time where this kid from Hope, whose parents couldn't vote, are going to demand that everybody has a right to vote in California. Because I not only know why you should vote, I know what happens when you don't vote. And that's the most important thing as well. So once again, any questions? More than happy to answer the questions.
Perhaps, but oh my gosh, you are in big trouble, Dr. Weber. You are coming back. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the chat, but really,
I haven't looked at the chat.
The words are so amazing. Oh my Lord, I am. Thank you so much. Hope, you were born in the right place. Hope, really, yeah, hope. And look at the hope that you give the world. Oh my gosh. I have some questions that were sent and some in the chat. One of them is about redistricting and how it can reshape our future, because obviously the stakes couldn't be higher. We hold our narrowest House majority since the 1930s. And even the tiniest of line changes could tip control in 2022. At the same time, the Cook Political Reports projects that Republicans could gain an additional 5 seats or more if they're allowed to gerrymander the lines. What do you think we can do to protect our Democratic majority in the 2022 House and Senate?
Well, I think, first of all of us have to be as engaged as possible and attentive to the process. They haven't drawn the lines yet, but they're in the process of getting the numbers in, and it's a public process, and we should be there when the lines are being drawn. Your club should have a contingent of folks who are going to watch the lines, who are going to make sure that we pay attention to it and not respond after the fact, but before. And I know that the California Legislative Black Caucus has decided that it's going to take some stands and to become actively involved in doing that. You need to do likewise. The Democratic Party needs to be actively engaged. Its members should be actively engaged. You should have someone in this committee who's designated as the person who's going to deal with redistricting, so that you have a committee that when they meet, you are there. You should basically look at the lines and utilize individuals who can help you. We're looking at hiring demographers who should help us to figure out the lines, to see the consequences of the lines, because oftentimes we try to do it ourselves. And what happens is we miss some significant things. I've seen that happen. And we end up in the implementation of it, discovering that we have basically disenfranchised an awful lot of folks, either who look like us or who are a part of the same party or whatever it may be. So you need to be actively involved in this redistricting. Do not allow it to happen and then you just respond to it after the fact.
Thank you. One of our board members is on the commission, the redistricting commission, Andrea Ammon.
I'm surprised they put a board member on the commission,
Well, our club, no. So
okay. Well, that is great. That is great. And that person should be bringing you information.
Oh, yes.
And sharing with you the direction it's going and influencing the decisions that's made. Because without the local input, the folks who are doing this are just some of them know the community, some of them don't. Some of them look at lines and they draw communities in all kinds of different ways, and you split neighborhoods, split jurisdictions that shouldn't be split. No. So I'm saying get involved early and influence.
We will heed this.
Yeah.
Another question, this is good, because you are so active already. You've been so active for so long, but what encouragement can you give other secretaries of state from other states to defend voters' rights, not infringe upon them?
Well, what we're hoping to do, there'll be an editorial coming out, I don't know what newspaper it'll be in, talking about Voting Rights Act that I'm authoring as we speak, and beginning the process of doing some town halls and workshops on it. I think there is a contingent of Democratic secretaries of state. And it's going to be our responsibility to not only work with each other, but to actually begin to support those other secretaries of state. Many of them realize that now this is a much more political position than they had anticipated, because a lot of them you've seen on TV from Georgia and from Pennsylvania and all around. And so they recognize that everybody's watching, not just their state, but watching them as well. And so my intent is to try to share with them what we're learning, what we're doing, to basically look at the bills that may be coming out of their houses, to see what we can do to assist or to thwart them. The unfortunate thing is that many of, I don't know if it's unfortunate, but the reality is that many of secretaries of states are appointed by the governor of their state. They're not elected officials, which means they're very limited in what they can say and what they can participate in. They're not like California as a separate elected official. They are appointed by the governor. Many of them are. And so they are limited. The others do have the ability to make comments. And so we're working to make sure that we can do some work with them around the Voting Rights Act, because some of them don't understand it. And also to lobby against some of the bills that they may be introducing in their houses.
Okay. This is kind of piggies on that. How do you respond to other secretaries of state when they advocate limited access and right to vote? And how do they respond when you respond?
I haven't much contact with them. I've only been in for 2 weeks, so but
that's quite true. we think you're already there. Right?
I'll tell you what I normally do with people like that. You know, one of the things I've always done in the assembly is I spend my time listening very carefully to people. My degree is in communications from UCLA. And so I generally listen to people very carefully, because most of the time people don't know what they're talking about. So I listen to them very carefully. I have a tendency to analyze the logic of their position. And then I present them with not only what the consequences of the discussion is going to be, but the history behind it. Because many times people think this is something new. And when you then begin to break it down and open it up, if they're honest about it, they will fight against it. Many of them are not necessarily pushing the bills, it's their legislatures that are pushing the bill. And because a lot of them have been attacked not only by, not so much by Democrats, but been attacked by Republicans publicly, and their integrity has been attacked. And so they've seen the ugliness that can happen. And so, whether they will fight their own legislators remains to be seen. But those who are not appointed by governors, but really elected officials, many of them realize that they're in some really difficult positions, because their legislatures are going one direction, and they know that they have a responsibility to try to open up this whole process and to make it fair and just. So we'll be working with them to help them understand and to give them the courage to do that, you know, give them the support that they need. I know that the Democratic group raises money to help in terms of people's campaigns, because oftentimes those secretaries of state who have fought back find themselves being attacked, and as a result, you know, have their own, not only their integrity attacked, but they're being attacked in terms of reelection. And so we have a committee that watches that to make sure that we can support them when it's necessary.
Oh, thank you. Another question, it's about the voting machines. You may be aware that LA County purchased new ballot marking devices from Smartmatic, which had a number of failures in the March 2020 primary. And former Secretary Padilla, while still a state senator, authored a bill which stipulated that the source codes of new voting systems would be released so that they could be tested for security. And despite election integrity advocates lobbying him to release the Smartmatic source codes, it didn't happen. We released these codes so that we can be sure our LA County ballot marking devices are secure. It's really a big issue with us down here.
This is the first I've heard of it. And like I said, for 2 weeks, Alex didn't tell me that, but
good. I'm glad it came up then.
I have heard people say that, you know, LA's situation is kind of a mess. And I'm scheduled to come here for the March 2nd elections to see what you guys are about. I have been meeting with the others up and down the state that are using different machines that are there. So, I understand there's been some improvement. We'll see if it's been enough. And I'll look and see what these codes are that you think we should be releasing.
Thank you. That's great. I'm glad that's happening. We have so little time. How about giving us, you know, I mean, there's so many questions. Maybe I'll get this chat, give you a copy of the chat, and maybe we can after the meeting, you know, maybe if you have a, you know, half hour.
We're at your time limit right now.
Yeah. Well, you could stay here all day. Next time it'll be your meeting for 2 hours. All right.
Kara?
How about, I'm sorry, you can't, please mute, be muted. What we would like is, how about just giving us a quick top 3 priorities and goals for this new role of yours for the year?
Yeah, that sounds, well, clearly we are going to be involved in, because we are involved in licensing of businesses, and we've created a system that we think is faster. So we're making sure that works, because many of our businesses were devastated in COVID, particularly those that were small businesses and many of the nonprofits. And I saw nonprofits just be hammered in this situation. So I'm kind of concerned about what those particularly those nonprofits that are small but make a tremendous impact on communities. And I saw them losing the battle economically, and communities that were devastated by it. So we want to deal with our business and our nonprofits with regards to whether or not we're being fair about it, whether or not we should provide them with more support and efforts that are there. And in terms of elections, obviously we're in the midst of elections in LA and in San Diego and some others, and hopefully we're not in the midst of a recall. But we want to make sure that that our systems continue to be transparent, and that we can demonstrate what we've done. California's done an amazing job with regards to the turnout of the election this last time. We want to keep that, but we don't want it just simply because it's driven by Trump. Trump is a great turnout for a motivator for people to vote, but we want to make sure that we're doing the right things. And so we're going to focus upon making sure that we get the word out in terms of people's right to vote, but equally important that we utilize some of the things that we learned, that we did in terms of trying to see if we can actually mail everybody a ballot, making sure that takes place, because it was not only the Trump, but the options that people had, 5 and 6 different ways they could vote, made people vote and gave them more time to vote. And so it became an easier process rather than one that was so difficult. And we want to make sure that those are instituted as something that's really easy for folks to do. We are going to engage in civic education. I'll be working with the state superintendent. We've already had a conversation to help people understand what it is to be a democracy, to help our young people understand it, to hopefully have civic education improved in our schools, so that we're doing a better job in creating California citizens, so that they know why they're voting and what happens when they don't vote, and how to be engaged in this whole process, this political process that they see and that they should understand and they should be able to defend. So those are some of the things we'll be doing. We have a number of other things that we're doing in terms of outreach and with regards to different populations, making sure that everyone knows all the information they need to have in order to be able to vote. But we're excited about these things. We hope that it makes a difference. We are confident that it will make a difference in California. And I'm just honored that the governor decided that he wanted me to be Secretary of State, which was a shock to me.
Well, we are.
But I look forward to working with you and hopefully working with the Democratic Party and getting things done. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Thank you so much. Yay. Thank you so much, Secretary Weber. And we'll see you again. And I will, if you are willing, I will get to your assistant a copy of the chat with all the questions.
Good.
And perhaps somehow they can be addressed so that I can tell our members what's going on. And
I see a lot of my friends have asked questions that I think they just did that to bug me, but that's okay.
Yeah, right. You know, so many people here too. Okay, so thank you again, and I guess we'll move on with the program.
Have a great day. Thank you. Take care.
Bye. I want to say hello here, by the way, everyone, to Mike Bonin, our city councilman from Council District 11, and I do believe that Council Member Paul Koretz is on, or he's coming on. I don't know. And also to welcome 3 of our club members who are DNC members, Andrew Lackman, Susie Shannon, and Derek Devermont. Look at that, you guys. You know, we do have a voice, and thank you all for coming and joining us. Right now, just for a couple minutes, you know, we have our club election later in the day, Alan Dale, our past president, will be running. But we thought we would just spotlight just for a second, like 30 seconds, a few of the candidates that are running now. This would be our executive officer candidates. And then later on in the program, before we do our actual vote and introduce our members and our board, we'll do the members at large. Ingrid Van Eckert, who is running for Vice President Operations. Do you want to just say hello and let everybody see your gorgeous face here?
Hello, everyone. I think most of you know me, and you know that I am one of Kara's right-hand people for whatever comes around. I'm a passionate activist for Democrats and democratic causes. And I would be so honored to, again, have another year with this great club and with my other board members. I'm hoping that one of my next tasks will be to put on a summer party. And I mean, really, I love the Zoom parties and it's great to see everybody, but there's nothing like an in-person party. We've had so many great ones and we're able to honor such incredible people. I was so totally touched and honored to listen to Dr. Weber's presentation and getting a glimpse into her life. And you know, what I have done is so little compared to what she has accomplished. And I just feel so honored that she joined us and that we could all listen to her and be inspired.
Thank you. Yes, well, we love you, Ingrid. I mean, truly, this would not happen without some of our amazing board members, Ingrid being number one. And I also, oh my God, I'm like so crazy. I forgot to shout out to Carolyn Fowler, one of our longest time members. God, you know, vice chair of the Women's Caucus of the CDP, super activist, and recently elected DNC member as well. Yay, Carolyn. So thank you, Carolyn, for coming, always showing up and supporting us. Rad, our new candidate for Vice President Political, who is one of the newest members of our board, and he has been a fabulous member. You know, he was head of our Ledge Committee. He'll tell you that, but I do want you to know he's always behind the scenes on these Zoom meetings, and he's the one that put together that great Bernie montage that we had at our meeting last time when we did the, you know, Bernie in the chair everywhere. Well, that was rad. So let me introduce you to Radmir Nowrouzi.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for that, Kara. Yeah, so I moved to LA in 2018, so I'm relatively new here, but I came here for school. Oh, thank you, Sydney Kamalager. So yeah, I attend UCLA and I graduated this past June with a degree in political science and a minor in public affairs. And this is truly something I've been interested in doing for a while. I've been involved back home in political clubs and organizations, both the Young Democrat level and at the statewide party level. I was a delegate until 2 days ago, technically. For my district back home. And here at this club, I was able to join Andrea as the Ledge Action Committee co-chair, where we hosted events such as the Robert Reich talk, which was really incredible. I really enjoyed that one. And yeah, I would be honored to serve this year as the VP for political, if you would have me. And yeah, thank you.
Of course we'll have you. I'm so excited, you know, and some of your friends too, some of your Bruin friends we can bring along. Okay, so I'm running, so I'm Kara, you know me. Next we have Kelly Willis, past president of the club and present secretary, and he has been in this position for a while. Kelly, you wanna say a brief hello so people see your face? Kelly? Kelly?
You.
I know he was
trying.
There he is.
There I am. I'm getting that you're not allowing anybody to unmute, and I know it's just me.
Oh, Kelly, no.
Yeah, as she mentioned, past president, but I've been the secretary for the club for more than a couple of years. This is basically attending and publishing what we're doing and making sure that we kind of keep the activities of the board history as we go along, because you know, everything's always moving forward, and we have to kind of look back and see what do we do and what works and what doesn't. I've also in past cycles been managing the e-letter that we were putting out. Cara's been putting this out since the pandemic. It's been kind of a single event kind of thing. There hasn't been a lot of spread for this, and then it blew up when we got to the election, and there were already so many people putting stuff out that I didn't want to just add to the noise. Now that the cycle has kind of ended, especially with the election that they just had in the Senate about, what, an hour ago, we're going to get back to putting out the e-letter with multiple Zoom meetings, and as Ingrid pointed out, you know, trying to put together some live events as we get farther into the year. And I'll be putting that kickin' ass column that I used to put in there. I'm going to start writing that again. So
yes, that's what we miss.
I'm always surprised when people say that they actually like it. It's often my just venting. I have to yell at the world because stuff is just crazy. So that's me. That's Kelly, and I'm running for secretary.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Susan, of course, would be our treasurer, would be saying hello, but she's not well. So, but it's Susan Blanchard. And of course, we're voting Susan Blanchard in because we need our great treasurer. Okay, so now it is my great pleasure to introduce you to our current Vice President Political, who I'm very sad to say is retiring from the board right now, but we'll get her back because she's so amazing. And she will be running the portion of our next portion, which is the Senate District 30 elections, our endorsement meeting. So can I introduce you please to Elena Ong.
Hi, everyone. It's just been such a pleasure to serve you. I'm not retiring, but I am moving on to focus on COVID policy. But I wanted to just
Elena,
welcome you all.
Happy New Year.
Oh, thank you. Wearing red for that. And really appreciate that, Cara. So I wanted to just welcome you to this section in which we're going to be talking about the endorsement process for the California Senate District 30 candidates. And so I think you're all excited that on December 7th, the Honorable Holly Mitchell was sworn in as the District 2 representative to the 5-member all-women LA County Board of Supervisors. And when that happened, a vacancy was created in her Senate seat, SD 30, and that special election primary will take place on Tuesday, March 2nd. Should there be a runoff, the SD 30 general election will be held May 4th. So today you have an opportunity to meet all 3 of the Democratic candidates who want to serve you as the next state senator for that area. Not only will you have a chance to ask questions of the candidates, paid members of the West LA Democratic Club since December 30th, who registered by 10 a.m. today, will have the opportunity to determine who could earn the West LA Democratic Club's official SD 30 endorsement. And so at 2:35 p.m., after all is said and done, the candidates have said what they need to say. The members who registered by this morning will receive an endorsement ballot by email, and you will have 20 minutes to complete and cast your ballot. And bottom line is whoever gets at least 60% of the votes cast by 2:55 will receive our endorsement. If nobody does, then Cara will let us know what's next. But at 2:55, Cara will announce the endorsement results. So that said, let's begin. Join me in welcoming the 3 Democratic candidates for SD 30. Let's pin them if they haven't already been pinned. California Assembly Member Sidney Kamlager. Culver City Vice Mayor Daniel Lee. State Commissioner Cheryl Turner. Candidates, will you begin by giving a 2-minute opening statement? Tell us, why are you running? And what are your top 3 priorities as state senator for the 30th SD, excuse me. Let's proceed in alphabetical order with Sydney Kamliker first, followed by Daniel Lee and Cheryl Turner. Assemblywoman, the floor is yours.
Oh, and yeah, Angia, yeah, countdown.
Okay, I had to unmute myself. Thank you. My name is Sydney Kamlager. I am the Assemblywoman for the 54th Assembly District and a candidate for Senate District 30. And also a member of the club. Good to see you all. You know, I'm a child of Chicago, actually a product of resistance. I was born to an interracial couple who was denied housing because of it. And they fought the system and the city and won, and taught me why it is so important to stand up and fight for justice. I did humanitarian work in the Appalachian Mountains of West Virginia and actually got a taste there for what it feels like when Black people are not seen, they are not heard, nor are they known. That experience actually encouraged me to help my Nana work to get Harold Washington elected as the first Black mayor of Chicago. I came here to attend USC. I was here during the riots, and it was in that moment, those moments, that experience that sparked the desire for me to stay here in Los Angeles, to make it my home and to fight for progressive change. I have worked and lived in the 30th Senate District for close to 20 years at Crystal Stairs, fighting for childcare and childcare providers' rights, as district director to Supervisor Holly J. Mitchell when she was senator for this seat, as a board member on the Los Angeles Community College District, and currently as an assemblywoman for the 54th Assembly District. I have spent my time in Sacramento since elected, fighting for restorative justice, worker protections, affordable housing, funding for homeless, environmental justice, women's rights, and for the LA region of chair of our delegation. I am running to continue the great work of Supervisor Holly J. Mitchell, who has endorsed me, as well as on my own record. My 3 priorities are racial and economic justice, single-payer healthcare, and climate action. I am also running because Black women need a voice in the state Senate, where currently no Black women serve.
Thank you so much. Mr. Lee, Vice Mayor Lee.
Thank you, and thank you for having me here today. My name is Daniel Lee. I currently serve as Vice Mayor in Culver City. In 2018, I was elected as the first African-American person to hold a position of a council member in Culver City. In my full-time work, I work with Reverend James Lawson at the James Lawson Institute and have done so since 2017. After Reverend Lawson and I became friends in 2014, I'm happy to have his endorsement. I got my MSW from UCLA in 2014, and I'm in the last semester of my doctorate program at USC in social work. I should be graduating in April. I'm running for the 30th district because I believe we need to do better by the people in the 30th district. And by we, I mean California. I believe State Senator Holly Mitchell did a fantastic job, but she didn't always have the support she needed to really advocate for essential workers, which make up a significant proportion of the 30th district. My policy priorities for State Senate really reflect a desire to do better by essential workers. Number one is single payer healthcare. I think the COVID-19 pandemic has shown us health inequity in process. The health inequities put on display by COVID were not caused by COVID. They existed prior to that. Another one of my priorities is housing. I feel like we need to build more housing more efficiently, but we need to do it in a way that doesn't encourage displacement or gentrification. Lastly, a very strong priority for me is having a more substantive response to the unprecedented uprisings last year around police brutality and white supremacy. I think there is more that we can do from the state level to address all of these issues, and I'm committed to do that as your representative in District 30. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vice Mayor. State Commissioner Turner.
Yes, thank you for having me. My name is Shirley Turner. I'm running to become your next state senator. I am thoroughly familiar with the district. Having grown up here, I was born and raised within the district. I attended Westchester High School, But let me say also, before I attended high school, I developed my love for the protection of the environment because I come from a family of scouts. I was a Girl Scout, and we grew up hiking, fishing, and camping. So I'm here to protect it. After going to Westchester High School, I went to USC, and I ultimately graduated with a law degree. After graduating with a law degree and being active in student rights and advising the president of the campus through an advisory commission, I went on to work in a variety of settings, law firms, corporate in-house counsel, and ultimately opened my own law firm in which I specialized in consumer rights and civil rights, as well as business, tax, and real estate law. And after working within that environment and representing my clients over a number of years, I decided to also devote a portion of my life to public service. And I started off by traveling back and forth to Sacramento, working with legislators, sitting down in their offices to discuss criminal and civil justice and rights, consumer rights, and housing laws. I was also appointed as a state commissioner, both at the city level and at the state level, where I had an opportunity to work with the Attorney General's office as well as the governor's staff to work on overseeing a government agency and ensuring that we had health care throughout the state of California. I have hand experience in a variety of areas as a small business owner, a housing provider, working in the medical field, as well as civil and criminal attorney rights.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I didn't get a chance to talk about my issues, but I'll talk about it later.
You'll have that opportunity, I promise.
All right, thank you. Okay.
So next up, we're going to ask about 4 to 5 questions, depending on what time allows. Each candidate will have up to 90 seconds to respond. The first question, and we'll go in again in alphabetical order, but we will start next with Mr. Lee. He'll be up first, and they'll follow in alphabetical order. Question number 1, and we'll put these questions in the chat after I read them. The Senate District 30 is very diverse. More than 50% of the district's residents are Latinx, 28% Black, 14% white, and 6% Asian and Pacific Islander. How have you worked with residents and diverse stakeholders of the Senate District? What have you learned from them, and what will you do as state senator to include and address their priorities, concerns, and issues? Mr. Lee.
Thank you for that question. Part of the work that I've done in this district, obviously for the first part of this question, has happened in Culver City as a Culver City Council member, where I helped bring rent control to Culver City for the first time and close down the Inglewood oil field, have a collaborative partnership with the UCLA School of Public Affairs, then also started a partnership with the Los Angeles City Planning Department, as both of our cities are going through a general plan process. While I was completing my MSW at UCLA, I also had the opportunity to work as an organizer in South Los Angeles, and where I worked with both Black and Brown communities, both on Prop 47, and in particular in the SAYA program, the South Central Youth Empowered Through Action program, where I not only volunteered and went to schools, but I created a mental health program and a mental health wellness retreat as well. I've taught in Century City as a tutor for the Princeton Review and other places, and I did my undergrad at USC. I got to know downtown when I was at USC, and also when I was an active participant in Occupy. In office, I would put structures in place beyond office hours and beyond town halls to make sure that we not only incorporated the opinion of everyone throughout the district, but we also incorporated their policy suggestions. And I have a suggestion for an infrastructural program called the Second Session that would be put in place for that discrete purpose, to get policy suggestions from the community and bring them back to Sacramento.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Turner.
Yes, having attended USC, it is a totally diverse population of students there, and working with the students there on student issues and student rights, I had the opportunity. Also working as president and within an association involving housing, we have a diverse population of different groups, Latinos, Asian, Pacific Islanders, and we all have worked together and organized on issues. And I'm looking forward to applying those techniques as your next state senator. And I would also like to go back to the issue of my focus is on COVID, addressing that on housing, education, and jobs, and also homelessness, and making climate issues a priority. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Assemblymember Conliger.
Great, thank you for the question, and absolutely correct. This is an incredibly diverse district. I think it's actually a microcosm of the state of California. You know, I will also say that many folks in the district, especially those on the eastern and the southern part of the district, feel overlooked and oftentimes forgotten because most of the focus happens on the western side of the district. And what I have learned is that there are unique voices and perspectives across the district that want and need to be elevated. You know, I, as district director, as assemblywoman, I have done this, and as senator, I would continue to do this, to meet with activists from across the spectrum and spheres. I meet with faith-based communities, social justice communities, immigrant communities and stakeholders, environmental justice communities and stakeholders, really working to build coalition, to build consensus, and to elevate the issues so that I can take those voices with me to Sacramento. You know, I also hold office hours, lattes and legislation. I engage in person, although not a lot now, and virtually. I've worked to bring select committee hearings to the district so that constituents can actively engage in those kinds of discussions that result in policy. It is so important to have an open door policy and to let folks know that this is their government and we're working with and for them.
Thank you so much. These are just great answers. Question number 2, and we'll go with Ms. Turner first. And so the question is, what experience do you have working on statewide legislation? Name bills you supported, drafted, sponsored, wrote, introduced, and or passed in the California legislature. And what was the legislative outcome?
Yes, as I had explained before, part of my public service is to travel back and forth to Sacramento, sit down with legislators in their offices to work upon various bills. And we've worked on, as a group, issues involving the earthquake retrofit funding to help to finance that for those small owners who do not have access to the capital to make those improvements, because that's important. We've also worked on the rental assistance bill, which I had talked about with this organization several months ago, and we're providing input. Right now, there's just a framework for it, but we need more details regarding that, and we need to get compensation to landlords to prevent the coming possibility of evictions and the possibility of foreclosures that we are being faced with in our community. I've also worked on bills related to housing we've worked on the Ban the Box, which affects those that have criminal convictions and giving them a chance to submit their application, be considered before looking at the criminal past. And sometimes they have been denied those opportunities to rent, as well as working on Section 8 housing and vouchers programs so that people, yes, will have income to help pay rent and remain in the communities that they live in and not be displaced.
Thank you so much, Assemblywoman.
So many. Last year, I got signed into law, probation reform. It was the only bill of its kind in the country that limited the amount of time that someone could be on probation, 2 years for a felony, 1 for a misdemeanor. It's actually being replicated in other states across the country. I got implicit bias bills passed. We know that we need implicit bias training with the folks of our judicial courts and also those in the medical community. I was a co-author on the Racial Justice Act, on the Reparations Bill, on the Ethnic Studies Bill, all of which got passed. I had supported AB 5 that would make sure that our workers got the protection that they deserve. I supported votes in the budget that protected childcare, that protected funding for our Medi-Cal services. I authored Crisis Act, and while the governor vetoed it because he wanted corrections to run it, it is coming back bigger and better than ever. I too was a supporter that helped get the Crown Act passed, that helped get ending cash bail, SB 10, across the finish line, and the bills that allowed for the eviction moratoriums to be put in place, as well as the eviction moratorium extensions and rent relief for renters and small mom and pop. I also authored, that got passed into law, an EV bill that would allow parking spaces to be counted as charging spaces to help for those that are looking to develop to have EV charging spaces available for them to be counted in their ratios. And lastly, I fought a very hard battle on the floor to take some discriminatory laws off the books that put LGBTQ members of the community on the sex offender registry.
Thank you so much, Assemblywoman. Now, Vice Mayor Lee.
Yeah, so first I should say there's an untoward bias in this question, which I believe is inappropriate for this forum. But as I said before, while I was at Community Coalition, I worked to advocate for and walk door to door to promote Prop 47 in particular. When I was an organizer and an activist only, I worked with a coalition of people across Los Angeles County to get the Los Angeles City Council to pass a resolution in favor of an amendment to the Constitution around Citizens United that says corporations are not people and money is not free speech. With Michelle Sutter, who is on the call right now, that push from the council level became a local referendum in LA City and appeared on the state level first as Prop 49, which the California Supreme Court pushed back on, and then finally as Prop 59. I have to credit Michelle in particular for doing most of the work on that bill, but I do believe that my efforts helped push that forward. Also recently, last year, I worked with Unite here to advocate with Assembly members and state Senate members to pass AB 4630, which is a rehiring bill, which pushes to rehire hospitality workers and hotel workers once the pandemic is done and our economy is booting up again. A lot of these workers are low income and have had these jobs for years to decades and should not have to lose their seniority just as a result of the pandemic.
Thank you so much, Vice Mayor Lee. Our third question is about what you're going to do when you get to the State Senate, and talk about the first bill you intend to introduce in the Senate and why it's timely, urgent, and important. In particular, how will you stage the groundswell of support you'll need to pass that bill? So we'll start with Ms. Kamlager.
Thank you. Well, I think the first bill that I will introduce when I get into the State Senate is a LA Regional Housing Authority Trust Fund. We have trust funds like this in other parts of the state, but we don't have one here that services LA County. We have 88 little cities who are doing their own kind of thing as it relates to building affordable housing, creating more density, and making sure that they're reaching their RHNA goals. And while more cities are reaching the goals as it relates to above income and affordable housing, it's not so great with low income or non-market housing. This is important because it will allow us to streamline and coordinate these kinds of activities, to raise money, to create a one application process, to help cities secure financing, to hold cities accountable as it relates to producing this kind of housing. And it will also allow for community land trusts to be involved, for us to participate in neighborhood economics. I believe that community equity and wealth generation is incredibly important to the discussion around housing. And it will allow us to hold cities more accountable. My hope is that this will run tandem with the governor's proposal for a housing accountability unit, a statewide effort to make sure that we are also making sure that cities are doing what they're supposed to do to meet the necessary goals to focus on getting all of our people housed in units that they can afford.
Thank you.
I will need a lot of support because this will be, I am sure, opposed by a number of entities.
Thank you so much. Mr. Lee.
I think the most important bill to move forward in our current context is a single-payer healthcare bill. I spoke earlier about the health and equities on display as a result of COVID. Those equities were not created by COVID, they existed before. They're the reason that we have such a disparity between Black mothers' maternal death rate and white mothers. They're the reason why so many people who are Black and brown and low income have to pay a significant proportion of their income for health insurance. Additionally, there are really cost-saving issues that should be considered when we consider single-payer healthcare. A lot of municipalities like Culver City and like Los Angeles City are on the hook very large for pensions for a very long time. One of the things that we don't talk about in the context of those pensions is the fact that they include healthcare. I think it would account for about 20 to 30%. If we could create a single payer healthcare system that could rival the private healthcare that these employees now receive, that could let cities off the hook for that requirement. Additionally, it could let small business and large businesses off the hook for trying to provide healthcare. They could use that money to more adequately compensate their employees and or reinvest it in the business. Single payer healthcare in the long term benefits all of us in many different ways.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lee. Commissioner Turner. Oh, you're on mute.
My first priority is focusing on the after effects of COVID-19 or the effects of COVID-19 on housing, education, and jobs/economy. So it's very important we have an organized statewide reopening plan. So we recognize safety, but we get our economy going again. So that's the main concern right there. And then my next issue would be addressing the homelessness crisis. We need to come up with a plan to clean up our streets, but provide housing for our unhoused neighbors. And we need to do that right away. Within the homelessness issue, as well as the COVID issue, again, I want to focus on the rental assistance problem that we're about to face. We're about to enter into a stage where we might have massive evictions. We need to do something about that immediately to stop that issue and keep people housed. Next off would, of course, be my climate issue, which I'm very concerned about what's going to happen to our planet, and the universal health care.
Thank you.
I want to work on that.
I appreciate the focus. I'd like to invite Cara Robbins to talk about some questions that she got from the chat room or directly.
Okay, thank you, Elena Ongs. Just an interesting question, I think that is we are really concerned about here from Nick Antonicello asking for your positions on the homeless dilemma that we have here. You know, we all know how much it impacts Los Angeles. It is like the nightmare. And would you support vaccinating the homeless first, which is terrific, a terrific. Okay, so I think You would be up, yes? I don't know who started.
Mr. Lee.
Thank you for that question, Cara. For me, in terms of vaccine priority, I'm really passionate about the need to vaccinate first essential workers. And this, to me, includes both hospital workers at all levels, doctors, nurses, custodial, everyone who works in a hospital environment who's repeatedly exposed to COVID on a regular basis. This also includes grocery workers. And for me, very importantly, this includes farm workers. Without the farm workers toiling on a regular basis for the last year, we would not be able to celebrate our essential workers in grocery stores or restaurants because our food system would not function. In the context of unhoused people and the homeless population, I think we should target those areas where there are outbreaks. And there have been, specifically in Skid Row and downtown Los Angeles. So I would support giving a priority to the places where there are outbreaks. But in the last year, that's also included grocery stores, nursing homes, and the like. I think the places that the outbreaks are still most active, and we're doing better with contact tracing right now, so we know that better than we did before. Those should be the priorities, but I think that would necessarily include some homeless encampments.
Thank you so much. Ms. Kamlinger.
Well, as it relates to our unhoused brothers and sisters, I want to say that I'm actually introducing a bill. It's AB 369, the Street Medicine Act, which would allow providers to provide preventative and general health care to our unhoused populations. Currently, we don't have that kind of infrastructure in place, and this would create that infrastructure and connect it to our Medi-Cal benefits so that regardless of if you're looking for a housing placement, mental health services, preventative care, or if you need to treat wounds or trauma, you will be able to have a provider assist you on a regular basis. I also believe that we need to be supporting our counties and having them work towards case conferencing and by name indexing to treat our unhoused populations as individual people. You know, every homeless person has their own unique challenge and issue and needs, and those should be addressed rather than treating that community as a monolithic group. As it relates to vaccines, you know, our #1 challenge is that we just don't have enough vaccines for the state. You know, Congresswoman Karen Bass, in consultation with me and Supervisor Mitchell, and I'm sure some other folks, has actually worked to secure us some additional vaccines for the South LA area. This is important because the report that came out from the Advancement Project shows that the hotspots, the darkest red in all of LA County, are in South LA communities. I do think we should be prioritizing our homeless individuals. I also think we need to be prioritizing our healthcare workers, our essential workers, our bus drivers, folks that are engaging and working with the public, our folks that are working in our grocery stores, our teachers, you know, and our adults with disabilities. You know, we have a large group of priority populations, and we have to figure out a way to service them all. We have had too many times where we have sort of put one group over another, and at the end of the day, those with the most need end up losing out.
Thank you so much. And Commissioner Turner, forgive me that I bypassed you. It wasn't intentional.
That's okay. So yes, we need to make them a priority, the homeless, the unhoused, but we also need to make our first responders the most important priority. Healthcare providers who are interacting with people who may have already contracted the virus need to be treated or vaccinated. We need our essential workers who are in the grocery stores, who are operating our public transit system, because again, they're interacting with the population and they are especially vulnerable. I want to focus also on our teachers, school administrators and staff, so that we can go about focusing on reopening our schools as quickly as possible. And let me not forget our elderly, infirm, and disabled who are in homes in which they have limited mobility and cannot be separated or distanced so easily. They also need to be vaccinated. So we have a lot of categories of people to address. It's my understanding that there are some vaccines that are sitting. People are not necessarily taking advantage of the opportunity to be vaccinated. So we need to focus on then redeploying those before those, vaccines expire.
Thank you so much. Kara, go ahead.
Yes. Assembly member Alex Lee has introduced a bill, AB 20, which would prohibit corporations from contributing directly to candidates. This is the first bill introduced into the legislature since the passage of Prop 59, thank you, Michelle, to address California's corporate money problem. Will you commit to voting in favor of AB 20 if you are elected? I think it's a very short 30-second maximum answer.
Ms. Turner, would you like to go first?
You want to start, Cheryl?
Yes. Okay. So corporations are not people. So yes, we should limit corporate contributions. However, I do want you to think about the fact that there are corporations. For instance, if I'm a small single owner, I decide to incorporate for limited liability. Are you viewing that the same? But I can understand the need to have individuals identify who they are when they make contributions, so we know who we're dealing with. Thank you.
Next is Sydney.
Yeah, so I don't believe that I serve on any of the committees that will see that bill before it gets to the floor, but I certainly look forward to voting for it when it does.
Thank you. Daniel?
Yes, I would wholeheartedly support this bill, and I would be happy to take an active role to convince colleagues around the state to support it as well. I had the opportunity to speak to Assemblymember Lee in December, a few days before he introduced this bill, and he knows just how much that I support his work.
Okay, thank you. Here's something that's dear to our club's heart, I will say, since we actually have introduced resolutions on this. What is your position on the proposed plan to restore the Ballona Wetlands Ecological Reserve? And do you support SoCal Gas's continued underground gas storage operations beneath the wetlands?
30 seconds, please.
I think Daniel?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, Daniel?
Yeah, this is such a complicated issue. I've spoken to a lot of people about it. I do not support the state's current plan. I think it unearths a lot of our ecosystem and a lot of the ecosystem of the flora and fauna there for no apparent reason. I do not believe that SoCal Gas should be continued to be allowed to store gas under there. I think it's an untenable situation.
Okay. I think we have time, let me see, for just maybe one.
I'm going to go to closing statements, Cara.
Well, let me just ask one more question because we started a little bit late on this.
Cara, I think we need to hear from the other candidates.
Right.
Oh, sorry. Oh, on this question, on the Ballona question?
Right.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So Ms. Turner and then Ms. Comliger next.
Yes, I think we need to do everything we can to restore the wetlands, and we need to work to remove these underground storage facilities which contaminate our soil and our water table and everything that's around it.
Ms. Comliger?
Yes, SoCal Gas, bad. I think there's leakages that are continuing to happen, and it needs to completely stop. I actually support preserving, obviously, the wetlands, and I've been working with environmental advocates on a bill around expanding the Baldwin Hills Conservancy and it's been a very collaborative process to make sure that all voices are heard and that we are able to sort of manage the authority, the increasing authority that the Coastal Commission has around certain issues that extenuate and perpetuate inequities, especially for those in South LA who deserve this kind of access.
Okay, one more question. Let's just do this in a minute or less. What environmental equity opportunities, this is important, do we see within the district? 2030 is an urban core, and there are limited access opportunities to open space. What environmental access do you foresee? And we will start with Daniel.
I think it's actually supposed to be Ms. Turner, but I can go. When it comes to environmental equity, I feel like we need to more firmly utilize Cal EPA's Cal EnviroScreen 3.0 tool, which maps both green space and uses an index to map the cumulative impacts of pollution from multiple sources. I think if we map those over each other, we see a dearth of green space, particularly in the south and the southeastern part of the 30th district. And in the same way that we have a regional housing needs assessment, we need to, use the assessments that we currently have on the state level to both identify the places where we don't have accessible green space and actually charge cities, counties, and work at the state level to actually produce those spaces because it's incredibly inequitable at the moment. We have a number of parks in Culver City, but in South LA in particular, they do not.
Mr.
Yes, we need to focus on environmental equity, and that includes making sure that we maintain and build our parks and our green spaces. We need to clean up toxic dumps. We need to limit the growth of refineries because they're growing out of control, and you can see all the things they are spewing into the environment, and usually those are in lower socioeconomic neighborhoods or in neighborhoods where people of color live. So we need to do everything that we can to restrict the growth of that.
Ms. Kamliger.
Thank you. What a great question. Equity is incredibly important. I want to just say that Black households that have an annual income of about $50,000 to $60,000 a year continue to live in communities with higher pollutants and poisonous air metals than profoundly poor white families with an average annual income of $10,000. We should be thinking about those numbers each and every time. I support the closing of the Inglewood oil field, all of it. I support the governor's $1.3 billion proposal for an EV infrastructure. I think it should be more, and I think there should be some equity metrics that allow a number of those dollars to be in places like South LA. I support the creation of more solar and wind farms. There's actually a bill that was introduced by Mr. Chu on wind farms, and also collaborating with our labor trades so that they understand the importance and the necessity to accelerate a just transition. I do believe we should be protecting the Cal EnviroScreen 3.0, which I actually work to do as district director to Senator Holly Mitchell, as that 3.0 version actually supports communities like South Los Angeles. And we need to fortify our grid because we won't be able to maintain any of what we're wanting to accomplish before 2030 if we don't do that.
Thank you so much. We have closing statements, and we've asked each candidate to have 2 minutes. If you would like less, that's fine. We're running against the clock, but the 2 minutes are yours. So I just want to start with Mr. Lee, if you don't mind.
It was like me 3 times in a row now.
Well, I can choose. Who would like to go first?
I can go ahead.
Well, I went first last time, so I don't want to feel like a hog. Maybe Cheryl.
Yeah, let's just do it. We want to get this.
Oh, she's giving me side eye. Maybe not. I was just trying to be helpful.
I'm not giving you a side eye.
Okay.
Be called.
So why don't we do this? My apologies that we have, it wasn't intentional that we did this. So let's go ahead and start with Ms. Kamliger first.
Okay, great. Thank you again. I want to end with this. Every society has its protectors of the status quo and its fraternities of the indifferent, who are notorious for sleeping through revolutions. That was a quote by MLK. I consider myself a revolutionary, and I believe that we are in a revolution fighting for progressive change. My revolutionary legislative package this year includes the Street Medicine Act, single payer, of which I am a co-author, getting rid of gang enhancements, stopping the monopolization of healthcare by religious hospitals who are yanking up a greater share of the market, removing slavery and involuntary servitude from our state constitution, and allowing California to import wholesale pharmaceutical drugs from Canada. It is as much about laws as it is about enforcement and coordination and funding, as it is about finding votes, building consensus, and building coalitions. I have partners who trust me. That is why they have endorsed me. People like Senator Holly Mitchell and DA George Gascon and Senator Alex Padilla, the mayors of the cities of Inglewood, Los Angeles, and Culver City, Patrice Cullors from Black Lives Matter, as well as the nurses with CNA and Sierra Club and CLCV. It is ultimately about elevating voices in and around the district who feel like they are part of the revolution, but have not been heard. I want to thank you for this opportunity to share with you my package and my vision, and I would be honored to have your endorsement.
Thank you so much. That was under time and that was perfect. Mr. Lee.
So in California, we talk a good game. We do it very well. What we lack is follow through. We introduce interesting legislation on a regular basis, but it doesn't pass and we don't push it. We talk about health equity, but we let private schools jump the line in terms of vaccine priority. We call essential workers heroes, but we allow grocery store operators to move out of town after being asked to pay them hero pay. We identify grocery store workers, mass transit workers, and more recently, myself and others have been identifying farm workers as essential workers, but we don't give them vaccine priority. We talk a good game about a lot of different things. And we like to hold ourselves up as a progressive leader, both in Los Angeles County and in California as a state. But by and large, that hasn't been true. Legislation has been introduced, but it's not been supported. It's been pushed down by lobbyists and corporate interest who buy our politicians. If you elect me to the state Senate, I promise that I will never be bought, and I will always push forward the policies that I told you I would. I am happy to be endorsed by Reverend James Lawson, who is a person of a similar ilk. The Americans for Democratic Action, Sunrise LA, Democratic Socialists of America, the National Association of Social Workers, California, many different groups from many different constituencies across the 30th district. They support me, not because they believe in my ideas, but because they've worked with me and we've seen things through to fruition. And that's what I promise to do on the state level. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Turner.
Yes, my name is Shirley Turner and I'm running to become your next state senator. I am a lawyer with a legal background. I can understand, propose, analyze, and negotiate the laws that are coming before me. I have a history of representing clients, helping them to reach and address a solution to their issues and concerns, and I can do that for the constituents of this district. I've demonstrated advocacy in Sacramento already on issues of consumer rights, criminal justice, and housing, although I didn't have the complete list when I talked to you about it before. I also have been involved as a state commissioner in state management of an agency at the state level, overseeing healthcare throughout the state of California. I also have firsthand experience in a number of issues on which the legislature actually creates laws. And so because I have that experience, I don't have to imagine or extrapolate as to what that actually entails. I've done it. I've been a small business owner. I've been a housing provider and been involved in construction. I've also been involved in the medical field, making sure medical clinics are in compliance. I've been involved in the civil and criminal justice system. I have a long history of public service, and that should be important to you because you know that with that background, I'm very unlikely to be swayed by special interest groups, and I'll always have your interests at heart. I'm running to be your next state senator to ensure that we have universal health care, because that is important for us all, to address the COVID crisis, to prevent the coming eviction and foreclosure crisis, to support education, because that's the foundation for success, to provide a livable wage so you have an opportunity to pay for your housing and all of your living expenses, and to protect the environment, because this is the only earth and the only home that we have. We must do everything we can to protect and preserve it. I will maintain transparency, keep an open office, and always keep you informed. And I would be honored to have your endorsement. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You're all amazing. Thank you for joining us today. I think we learned so much. I want to wish you the best of luck in the endorsement process and on your campaign and the days leading to the primary on March 2nd, everybody. Okay, so get your votes in order. Your ballots, right?
Elena, yes, right? Because we went out a little longer, I just went back in and extended the voting time, so you'll have time to go to your emails and get your ballot and vote and get them in rather than by 2:55. I think we'll be done by 3:10, and I hope that's not a hardship for anyone, but I want to make sure that everybody gets their ballots. Sometimes they go to junk. They'll be coming from West LA Dem Club, and the heading is, I think, election or endorsement vote for Senate for SD 30. So ballots are on their way if they're not already in your inbox. Thank you all, wonderful candidates. Oh my gosh, I think we need to just expand who we have. And all of you really are so well deserving, and I hope we hear a lot more from every one of you. I also want to say hello to State Senator Ben Allen. I believe Ben is here, and Council Member Paul Koretz, and also a shout out to our LA County Democratic Party Vice Chair, Pat Sanders. So if there's anybody else, I'd love to be able to just spotlight these people to say hello or, get them helloed. But anyway, welcome all of you. And so right now, it is my great pleasure to introduce a good friend. Wait, no, Elena, you're going to introduce him. I'm so sorry.
Oh, well, I love this Ben Allen photo. That's great. Hi, Dan. So we'll do this like camera spotlight. But while you're voting, we have a great thing in store for you. I'd like to introduce you to our next speaker, and that's Dr. Shai Roy. He's a clinician, a policy expert, and an elected official. Dr. Roy practices cardiology at Harbor UCLA. He's on the California Medical Association's Board of Trustees. And he's an elected trustee of Santa Monica College. He's also the past president of the Santa Monica Democratic Club and the youngest person to ever serve as president of the LA County Medical Association. Join me in welcoming Dr. Roy to address what's on everybody's mind, COVID-19. The floor is yours. Oh, unmute, please. So Dr. Roy will have 5 minutes to present, and we'll take about 10 minutes of Q&A.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me and hosting me. I really appreciate it. And so I'll quickly give just a COVID-19 update, and then really leave it open for questions. I imagine there's vaccination questions for sure. COVID-19, we saw a terrible surge from about Thanksgiving till the end of January. This surge was about 3 times as bad as it was in June, May and June. And so, but thankfully things are getting better both in LA County and in California, and actually in most of the hotspots across the country. And the number one thing on people's minds at this point is the vaccination rollout. So far, a little bit more than 5 million Californians have gotten vaccinated, and a little bit more than 1 million Angelenos have gotten vaccinated inside the county. Now, the onset of the rollout, which happened at the end of December through the end of January, really was suboptimal. There's no sort of covering that up. We had an inefficient rollout. And for the first month of vaccinations, our state, for a multitude of reasons, was in the bottom 5 of vaccine rollout efficiency. Since Yolanda Richardson took over and was appointed from the governor, she is someone who has a long history in healthcare in the state, was really one of the top leaders and covered California after the Affordable Care Act. Since she took over, actually, things have improved. And over the past few weeks, we've improved to really middle of the pack in terms of vaccine rollout efficiency. There is a little bit more transparency. The website and the systems are working better. And currently, the people who are eligible for vaccinations for their first or second vaccination are those that are 65 and older. We are behind on getting educators and childcare providers vaccinated. They were supposed to be part of the cohort that was vaccinated here in February. And 2 things happened. I think we were more inefficient than what was expected, number 1, and B, we went to an age-based system, or a higher priority of an age-based system than what we thought in November and December. So I'm confident that educators and childcare providers in LA County, unfortunately, won't be eligible here in the month of February. Right now, from what I'm told, March is what we're looking at. But again, there's no promises in any of this, of course, because you know, we were supposed to start educators and childcare providers in February. And so these have gotten pushed back. And so this is, you know, all of this is in real time. So, you know, the good news though, the good news is that vaccine rollout has improved over the past month in California, in Los Angeles County. And so the efficiency has improved. And then the other piece of good news is the Moderna vaccine, as well as the Pfizer vaccine, which need 2 shots, have continued to prove to be efficient in all of the, you know, the preliminary data on the different variances throughout the world of the vaccine, of the virus. And so I think most scientists are still confident that Moderna and Pfizer will have 95% efficacy in terms of warding off symptomatic COVID-19. And then finally, there are 2 other vaccines that will be used in the world and maybe in the United States. There's a AstraZeneca vaccine as well as a Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Both have shown to be less efficient, less effective, slightly less effective than the 2 vaccines that we're using now. The benefit of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, though, is that it's a single dose vaccine. And they have asked for emergency approval. And so they may get it over the next few months. Part of the differences in the vaccine are the way the studies were done. AstraZeneca, unfortunately, you know, weirdly messed up in the way that they looked at the data. And so it's still unclear how effective it is compared to Moderna and Pfizer, which really ran unblemished studies. And then Johnson & Johnson looked at a different end target than the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines. Moderna and Pfizer looked at how effective is this vaccine warding off any sort of symptoms for COVID-19, whereas Johnson & Johnson, the singular dose vaccine, looked at how effective is the vaccine at warding off moderate or severe symptoms. So mild symptoms were not included. And so it's not strictly comparable to the 2 vaccines that are used right now. All of that being said, I do think that all 4 vaccines are fairly effective, but I'm most confident currently in the data that we have for Pfizer and Moderna. So with that, I'll leave it open to questions that you guys have. And I apologize, before we get to questions, I do want to really reassure that in terms of the side effects of the vaccinations, you know, the majority of people are having no side effects or small side effects, really mild symptoms like mild arm soreness. And there's a small minority, and actually I was one of them, that feel, you know, fevers, chills, things of that nature 24, 36 hours later, particularly after the 2nd dose. And so, but the vaccinations throughout the country, throughout the world as they've been used, have proven to be highly safe. And so I don't express any concern about the safety in general of these vaccinations. So thank you for having me, and I'm happy to answer any questions the best that I can.
Thank you so much, Dr. Roy. While people are populating the chat with their questions, I'm going to ask you from an organizer soul this question. And it actually kind of comes on the heels of 2 days ago, a report that was done by a group at Lancet Commission in England. So bottom line is this. Nearly 500,000 people lost their lives to COVID-19 in the United States. Millions lost jobs, livelihoods, and homes. The economy is a wreck with millions more living on the margins, all because we had a president who failed to implement a national strategy to prevent COVID. According to the Lancet Commission, 40% of the nation's COVID deaths could have been prevented if America's average death rate matched that of other industrialized nations. But the issue is far deeper. It has to do with decades, if not centuries, of social and economic inequality. Now that President Biden is in office, how can we turn this crisis into an opportunity? How can we use it to increase the number of registered Democrats, the percentage of Democratic voters who actually vote, and the percentage of Democratic office holders needed to build and sustain a national movement for health for all?
Thank you for that question. I generally agree with everything that you said there. I think that this has shown really how much inequality that there is in our country. Not just healthcare inequality, but social inequality, really inequality at every level. And COVID really exploits that because it touches us at every level. It doesn't just touch our healthcare outcomes, it touches our economic outcomes. Look, I work at Harbor UCLA. We serve almost 100% minority population. And my wife works at UCLA. Which has a much more affluent population, though a mixed population, and both waves. The COVID touched us at Harbor UCLA by far worse, and there was than at UCLA or other hospitals in West LA and Cedars, and the biggest reason is all of the things that contribute to inequality that we look at. Income inequality. If you're an essential worker, over the past year, you've been much more likely to attract COVID-19. If you get COVID-19 in a blue collar neighborhood, you're much more likely to go and live with multi-generational living and give it to folks in your own home. Because you don't have a place to quarantine. And so really COVID has exposed all of the inequities that really have, that many of us Democrats, many of us activists have existed for decades. And while, things have surely improved since, let's say, 60, 70 years ago, we're clearly not there yet. And so, in terms of going forward, and then I do want to touch on the vaccinations. We're seeing this with the vaccinations too. The vaccinations are getting to communities of color at a much lower percentage than to white populations, more affluent populations. That's going on in LA County, that's going on throughout the country. And so, what can we do going forward? I think one of the biggest things is having our eyes wide open in terms of really recognizing what's going on and articulating what's going on here. Prior to COVID-19, it's, healthcare is such a difficult thing to discuss, and the data is easy to manipulate. And so people can manipulate to show really anything that they want. But COVID, really, you can't turn your eyes away from the inequity exposed by COVID. And I think President Biden did that a really good job of articulating these issues during the campaign, as did so many congressional Democrats. And going forward, it's just about articulating this, taking this message to the American people, and generating consensus, generating buy-in that all Americans deserve healthcare. Right now, we don't even have buy-in on that all Americans deserve healthcare, and it's about convincing people that's the case, because without people really believing that, it's very hard to affect real change in our broken system.
Thank you, Dr. Wright. Cara, do you want to take some questions? Bring some questions up? Okay, let's see here. I would say, my thing is not scrolling.
Elena,
you want to go?
Right. Wait, yeah, Shai. You work in hospitals that serve communities often, without many resources. Our doctors and nurses heroes are carrying the enormous load of being underfunded and overworked. How are you and fellow doctors and nurses holding up, and how can we help you?
Oh, thank you for that question. And it's been a tough year. It's been a tough year, and I don't speak from that, not just personally. It's been a tough year for healthcare providers. It's been a tough year for everybody in the United States and the world. I mean, the COVID has been very, very difficult. And from a healthcare provider standpoint, everybody that works in a hospital, and I wouldn't even touch on, I mean, the rate of physician burnout is very, very high, but I wouldn't even focus on the physician part of it. A hospital is a community where, there's nurses, there's people that come in and clean the rooms, the people deliver the meals, and people that do literally everything. And people have variable amounts of resources to help themselves and their families. And it's been a really tough year at the beginning of the year. Just nervousness. It was like entering a war zone every time you went into a hospital. Childcare, there was a lot of childcare discrimination against healthcare workers at the beginning of COVID. And as we've gone on through this second surge, it's just like everybody else. It's less acutely scary because we've kind of mentally gotten used to it, but people are really burnt out, and people it's been very difficult. And so, I don't want to complain about, myself. I really would like to focus on the people really who work in hospitals that don't make a lot of money, that don't have a lot of support, don't have a lot of resources. And those people really should be taken care of going forward.
I don't know how. Listen, what is the thing about the J&J vaccine? Because the effectiveness numbers seem to be lower. What should people be nervous? What is with this?
So again, the positive of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is that it's a singular dose. And so we'll be able to get it to much more people easier. They looked at efficacy of moderate to severe COVID. And if you look at that and you compare it to just symptomatic COVID, so even mild illnesses, they're just as effective as Moderna or Pfizer. But if you look at the same endpoints as Moderna and Pfizer, it is probably less effective in preventing, something like mild symptoms. And so, the most important thing is preventing moderate and severe COVID symptoms and death, of course. And in those venues, Johnson & Johnson is effective. And I'm confident that when the data is fully analyzed, and if and when it's approved, there will be transparency. There's been good transparency with the Moderna and Pfizer vaccinations, and Americans won't be vaccinated, I'm confident, with something that is suboptimal compared to Moderna and Pfizer. I am confident with that.
Dr. Roy, we'd love to thank you for addressing these issues about vaccination and safety. If you can talk about that a little bit more. Many people are really afraid to get the vaccine, particularly Black Californians. Maybe you can talk about vaccine acceptance, hesitancy, and uptake.
Yeah, no, and that's true. We've seen that in we've seen hesitancy in getting this COVID vaccine in a number of communities, including communities of color, in our typical anti-vax communities, but also you just mainstream people who would normally get vaccinations. There is hesitancy to this because all of this, seemingly has gone so fast in terms of the approval. What I will say is, when you get the vaccination as leaders, most of the people on this call are leaders in your community, and just really making sure that people know that you got the vaccine, that you did well, or being transparent with whatever symptoms that you had. I think that's really important, and expressing that there really is no evidence that these vaccines are unsafe in any way, and they are very effective. All of the data shows that, and all of the data with the vaccine rollout has shown that as well, not just the data during the trials. And so it's really, I just encourage, there's 70 people on this call. I just encourage you to get into your communities and tell people, I got the vaccine, and it's safe, and it's safe to get.
Thank you so much for talking about that. It's really about vaccine, just user ability to really appreciate how the system's being implemented and how to receive the vaccine. And so we have someone asking a question. What is the expected time frame by which all healthy Angelenos will be able to schedule a vaccine appointment?
I wish I knew the answer to that question. Sorry, my toddler is running behind me. I wish I knew the answer to that question. And the honest answer to that question is nobody knows how long this rollout is, how long it's going to take to vaccinate all Angelenos. Right now we've made some progress. We've done more than 1 million Angelenos. Obviously, we have about 12 million left. And so it's to be seen, but I would expect that Angelenos to be getting vaccinated up to the same time next year. I expect that when we're talking about this next February, that there will still be people getting their initial doses of vaccine. And then there's kids, and there's, even young kids. There are current trials going on with kids, people who are under the age of 16, and they hopefully will be eligible for these vaccines in fall, after some data comes out. And, I have a toddler, but we saw Ben, who has a toddler as well. And I don't expect babies and toddlers will probably ever get this vaccine, because I don't think there will be any data on it by the time there's herd immunity.
The Biden administration is basically moving into the Defense Production Act and making more vaccines available at a faster rate. And so we have Dr. Fauci kind of giving some predictions of when some of the vaccines will be available. But I think one of the things that we're also experiencing here in LA is kind of a bottleneck, if you will. So on the efficiency front, the city of LA, which has an appointment queue in place for its 5 LAFD sites, efficiently administered well over 85% of its vaccine allocations, but it's had to temporarily suspend its operations while shots are available at other sites. Is this effective in the near term and for the future? And if so, why? And if not, what should be done about it?
So, this is not a problem that's unique to Los Angeles. It's been going on in other cities where there have been suspensions of, there's been a number of problems. There's two parts to this. This is that there's the generating the actual vaccinations, getting them to the states, and then distributing within a state. And in California, it's like distributing within a country in and of itself, because we're so big and so complicated. Things have been paused. They're paused right now in a number of sites for the reasons that you expressed. Will this happen in the future? I honestly, I don't think anybody knows, because I will touch on this point. There has been a there's been suboptimal communication between the supply chain, to the delivery units at the state, to the delivery units at the county. And so what happens is, if these agencies don't communicate in the best possible way, it's really hard to know what's going to happen a week from now and what's going to happen 2 weeks from now, because we don't know at which point of this supply chain, which point of this process, there's going to be a bottleneck. And so Sydney and Ben are on here, and I know I've talked to both of them about this, and they're, they've been working on this as well. Just the communication has to be improved in the state of California, in the county, to really improve the issue that you're talking about, and that would be my biggest takeaway.
Okay. I think we have to go. I think, again, like, you could be on for an hour. I think maybe we'll just have to have you come every meeting just for, maybe to introduce, start in the beginning or something. We have two questions that if you can do them both. One is the how safe, there are two, okay, it's two. How safe are the vaccines? And it's a big question for Black Americans, or maybe across the world, I don't know, but because of, things that have happened here that we all know about. So that is an issue. That is a question that came up, the safety. And also, if you get your vaccinations, do you still have to wear masks? What kind of precautions do you still have to take? So let's end with these two questions.
Sure. On the first question, the vaccinations are safe. The vaccinations are safe. 99% of people have no side effects or mild side effects to the vaccination. The vaccine is safe, the vaccine is effective, and in communities of color, in African-American communities, in Hispanic communities, really the biggest important thing is for us as leaders to go out there and say, I got the vaccine, or I know people who got the vaccine, and please be assured that the process was okay, it was safe. I had no or mild side effects, or be transparent about it, but really just to be vocal and communicate to your communities, your neighborhoods, that this happened. And then sorry, Cara, what was the second question?
The mask. What precautions?
Oh, yeah. So currently there's no data on how the vaccinations, how the vaccines, whether they affect the spread of the virus. What we have data on is when you get your vaccination, that it helps you. But there's no data one way or the other, positive or negative. There's just no data on whether what it does to prevent the spread of the virus. Now, I've talked to a number of infectious disease experts on this. Most people feel that it does mitigate the spread of COVID-19 once you have the virus, once you have the vaccination, but we don't know that for sure, and we don't know how much. And so it is important. I think Dr. Fauci, somebody had mentioned that, it'll be important for us to wear masks probably through the end of next year. And I totally agree with that. And I do think that this will be a permanent cultural change where 10 years from now, when we're hopefully long past this, that you will go to the grocery store and you will see people in masks and people on airplanes. I think this is a permanent sort of a shift in our culture, most likely. We've seen that in Asia, which has more experience than us with this.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you so much for that. And that's a plug. Go out to our website, order our West LA Dem Club Vote masks. Why not in a minute? Okay, listen, Shai, thank you so much. There's so many questions. There's really so many questions. They're all in the chat. Why don't you kind of scroll through the chat? Maybe we can do something on our e-letter with some answers from you. That you
totally, and I'll put my email address in the chat too. I'm happy to, if anybody wants to email me with questions, I'm happy to get back to you. No problem at all.
Okay, listen, you guys, you get 3 minutes left to vote if you haven't voted. I hope everyone got their ballots. Thank you by the way. Thank you again so much. Thank you for taking.
Thank you guys. Thank you very much.
Weekend, your long weekend. Enjoy yourself. Okay, so I want to introduce now for the last few minutes before I go and check our ballots to Alan Bale, our past president, gosh, some few years ago, and who will take over the next part of our meeting. Unfortunately, Mark Salzberg had another meeting at 3, so he won't be able to introduce himself, but I think you all know him. He also was a past president, very, very active, you know, in all of our data, our Senate data, and he works also, he helps with voter recruiting and all. He works with Ellen Bridle, and he's on our headquarters steering committee. So that's Mark Salzberg's introduction. Alan Bale.
Thank you, Cara, and thank you to all of our great speakers and candidates. Really, really enjoyed it. And I think the most appropriate way to start here would be to say that I got my first dose of the Moderna vaccine on February 3rd at Dodger Stadium. From getting into the line in my car until I drove away, it was 1 hour. And for the first hour afterwards, I was like, I was hot. Woo! So a free whatever that is. And then for a day, it felt like somebody slugged me in the arm pretty heavily. And that faded off over a couple of days, and it's now fully normal. So that was my experience, and all good. The people on site did a great job. So we've got our club election, and I'm going to introduce the candidates for that election, and we're going to go a little out of order and talk about the members at large. The members at large fill a really important role with our club. They take on assignments. If there's an area that they're interested in, they may pursue that: voter registration, engagement, events, special projects, and help out the president, because Lord knows she needs help. There, okay, a little smile. So I'm going to introduce the three. Although Mark had to leave, and Cara said a few words. So the two remaining candidates, or hopefully by acclamation, will be put into office, are Julie Goodman and Connie Thomas, and both are currently working with the board. Julie, would you like to say a few words? And is she unmuted?
And is she here?
Maybe she's gone off with Mark. There she is. I see her yelling at the screen, going, "Why can't you hear me?" We able to get you, Julie?
Host.
There you are.
There you are.
Oh, okay. The host would not allow me to unmute. It kept saying that every time I tried. So sorry about that. Anyway, I have had the honor and pleasure of being a member of this board, a member at large for a few years now, and previously served as secretary on the board. I just think that this club does so much and so much organizing, and I'm happy to serve and help as much as I can. And I hope that I can remain in this role because it's satisfying and you feel like you're doing something for the Democrats.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
Julie.
And Connie, if you're here, and could Connie be unmuted? I see her, but not yet unmuted. The host will get to you. There you go.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I hope you guys are hearing me.
Yes.
Okay. I am running again for member at large because I very much enjoy the work that I do with the club.
And I am so pleased that the club does so much, just like today. They bring information to the community, they bring people to the community, they allow us to be able to dialogue and talk firsthand, to ask questions and to educate ourselves and become more informed so that we can do things that will make our community a much better community than it is. And there's so much that is going on in the world today, and in the nation, and in the city and the state, that these are things that we need to know about. And so my role with the organization is to just be an activist, to be informed, to share the information, and to help in all the ways that I can. So I enjoy doing this. The team that I work with, all the other members of the board are just fantastic. And I do want to continue to contribute and do the things that I can in the best way that I can for the next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. Our other positions that are being filled, our president, which is Cara, our vice president of operations, Ingrid, our proposed vice president political, Rad, our secretary, Kelly, our treasurer, Susan. So if there are no, do we do nominations from the floor? I guess that doesn't.
No, we eliminated that.
It's only, so if people have already.
Yeah, I requested and no one.
I guess they could be a no confidence vote, but why don't, is there a motion to elect each of these individuals by acclamation?
Please.
I'd like to move that as a exiting person. I feel I have that opportunity to bring that forward.
Thank you, Elena. And is there a second? I see a second. Dave, Ty. Okay, why don't we vote by raising our Zoom hands? All those in favor of electing these boards by members by acclamation. We'll try and see if your hands are up on the screen, but if you can raise your Zoom hand, which is usually if you hit your participants thingy, and then over on the right hand side, there'll be raise hand. And can somebody go through and check those out? Let's do that. And then if that's not going to work, we'll figure it out. And I see Kelly and Ingrid are voting yes, and Dency and Deidre. And
can't see them.
Yep. Okay. We can lower hands. And then any opposed to election by acclamation? Okay, I see lots of opposed. No, I think your hands just haven't been lowered.
Thanks, Connie. You're not going to vote.
Yeah, Paul Koretz is against it. Yeah, I got you, Paul.
Or the hand.
Okay, no hands. Congratulations on our newly elected board.
Yeah, we're the newly elected officers. I very much would like to actually, and I'm going to go look and see the results in a minute, but I would very much like to introduce our actual board, the people who have been serving on the board. I'm just going to go down the participants list. And while Elena is leaving us, Ingrid Van Eckert, our newly re-elected vice president of
Thank you.
Of opportunity, of operations. Rad Naruz, there's Rad, where's Rad Naruzi, our new vice president, political vice president. If you say hello, maybe it'll pop up here. Alan, our past president. Andrea Ambris, who's our legislative chair and right-hand woman here. Going down, Connie Thomas, newly elected, re-elected member at large. Ellen Bridle. She's our, where's Ellen? She is our elections outreach chair. Victory starts today, and she's also on our headquarters. She is our campaign outreach. She does really we have to all work with her. She does all of our phone banking organization and the postcarding and all the election work. Okay, Frances Penn, who is on our board and she is our senior advocate chair. Let's see, Julie Goodman, member at large, Kelly Willis, our secretary, Louis Watanabe, who has been a member at large and I believe will be continuing on as an appointed member at large. Molly Basler, who is the chair of our state and national committee. Going down. I think, have I, oh, and Tracy Gore, my gosh, of course, our membership chair. Yay, Tracy. Mark Salzberg. We could not do this without Tracy, by the way. She reminds you all the time. And people just, things go to spam, or people get so many emails that they just don't know that it's time to renew, and it's always time to renew. I'm going to go now to
and Michelle Morton.
Where's Michelle Morton?
No, she's not here. She's not here, but we're.
Oh my God, Michelle Morton. Oh my gosh, Michelle Morton was supposed to be our timekeeper today, and maybe 10 minutes before the meeting, she said something was happening with her heart. She went to the doctor. We have to hope that she's okay. I'm gonna ask her to let us know. So, quick white light and prayers to Michelle for a minute here. Energy to Michelle, please. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to leave you for a sec and go on to Election Buddy and see our results. Completed. Okay. Results. Looks like our newly endorsed candidate for Senate District 30 is Sydney Kamlager with 68% of the votes. So we thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Congratulations to Sydney. You all can see the results that you can click on your link and it'll tell you what the results, how they were. But to say again, Sydney had 68.1%, Daniel had 14.9%, Cheryl had 10.6%, and no endorsement had 6.4%. So congratulations. Thank you. All of you are amazing candidates, amazing people. This is our endorsement. Sydney, are you here to say something? Sydney?
I am. I just want to say thank you to the club for embracing me so many years ago as a member, and allowing me to come and share with you updates when I was working for the assembly member, when I served on the board for the Los Angeles Community College District, and as the current assembly member for the 54th Assembly District. I hope that we can continue to partner with each other, where I can share information with you and listen to you and continue to engage you in this great process called democracy. But I cannot tell you how humbled I am to receive your support.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you very much, Sydney. Thank you for coming and gracing us with your presence. And well, we'll see. So we'll see March 2nd. Thanks, everyone. And I also wanted to give a shout out to John Katz, president of the Santa Monica Dem Club, and Susan Ward, president of the Westchester Playa Dem Club. We always love when everyone is a member and of our club, as well as chairing their own clubs. It's a hard job being president of a Democratic club, believe me. So thank you all for coming, and I think that's our day. Yes. Anybody else have anything they might want to say? I can unmute people. I can
would you care to just unmute everybody and allow a free-for-all?
Yeah, I don't even know how to do that. How to unmute everybody. Do you know how to do that, Rad?
It would be the host.
I think I just did.
Oh.
Yeah, he did.
Okay.
Funny because whenever anyone tried to talk, it would say, host will not allow you to unmute.
Paul Koretz is there, everybody. Paul Koretz, Councilmember Paul Koretz.
There's Carolyn
Hey,
Fowler.
great to be here. Thank you for including me in this. It's always good to join the West LA Democratic Club at a meeting. And you do such great work and helped so much in the last election, and even with folks in Georgia and getting us to 50. Now we can all move forward, having gotten rid of the by far worst president and vilest president ever to serve, and start working with Joe Biden towards some great things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cara, I just want to say congratulations to you and the rest of the board on getting on your election. And, you know, from Santa Monica Dems, we love working with you guys. You're our sister club. You know, we love working with you at the headquarters and outside of the headquarters. And also congratulations to Sydney on getting endorsed. And we look forward to everything that you're going to do in the state Senate.
Thank you, John.
Cara,
yeah?
It's Ruth. I just wanted to ask, you said that you would post the webinar on the website? Or?
Yeah, yes, I will. Kelly and I will confer on that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yes. What a great, oh my gosh, Shirley Weber, right? Wow.
Oh, no kidding.
Oh, God, I really had no idea. And she could be everybody's friend too. You know, she's just like all the rest of you electeds that we all love so much. You know, it's like real people. You
Cara, thank you so much for having her with us. I mean, that we all sort of knew about her. I really just was blown out of. I told my daughter, who's working up in San Francisco as an attorney right now, says our new Secretary of State is amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah. Very good. Very good.
And I just want to give a shout out to Andrea for helping us secure Secretary Weber. She was fabulous. Thank you, Andrea.
Nice score. Nice score, Andrea. Yeah.
I guess Derek can't unmute himself. Is there somebody that can assist with that?
Derek? Ask to
Who's that?
Yeah, can you unmute now, Derek?
No, he's having a.
There it is. There it is.
Thank you so much. Just want to say, Cara and everyone else here, that we at the DNC, I think I can speak for my fellow DNC members, but there are some here who can speak for themselves. Love and adore all of you and are very grateful for all you do. And it doesn't go unrecognized that the grassroots is really what gets it done. And we very clearly see it. So the DNC loves all of you.
Oh, thank you, sweetheart.
Feel free to say I'm wrong, Carolyn.
No.
We'll be expecting a lovely Valentine's Day gift then.
I get Cara a Valentine's Day gift every year.
Down now, Jack.
Well, that said, I want to just express my shared love for this club. Thank you so much. It's been an honor to serve with you for the past 2 years. And you've been so excited about the next steps for winning 2022 and anything in between, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, you've been great. You know, we're going to really miss you, Elena. Really, you've been just wonderful and, you know, so on task. And really, if you ever want a job done well, Elena Ong is the one to call on because she leaves no stone unturned, truly. She really is down to the second, really, really wonderful and wonderful to work with. So thank you. Thank you for your long
Thank you very much, Elena.
Thank you, Elena.
So anybody else have anything that they want to say before we oh, and congratulations, by the way. I'm seeing Angela and some other Angela and John for being elected to ADEM. Yes. And anybody else here that I'm missing? Because I don't know all the different.
Well, Mark did, but
Mark did. Of course he did.
Me.
Oh, Linda Lux. Of course. Where is that Linda Lux? Where?
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Linda Lux and Mark.
Hi, everybody.
I don't know who all is on the call. I'm quickly trying to scroll through. You know, very tough. This was a tough race. I tell you, there were so many amazing candidates and so many, and these slates, you know, and then what do you say, dark horses, like people who came up, like in my district in the 62nd, the person who got the most votes, the woman who got the most votes, who was great, she was Amanise Sanati. She was the one that organized that, what was it called? Lights for Peace, or it's when we had all these protests and when they had the children, you know, when we really were made so aware of the separation of families and the kids in the cages and how horrible it was. And Amanise actually put together this wonderful, wonderful things with the moms. It was like a rally, a big rally thing at the Westchester, at Mike Bonin's Westchester office. And it was really good. And she's just so active and proactive. And this woman was not on a slate, and she got more votes than anyone.
Oh my
so
God.
You can do this. It's organizing, you know, it's really something. It's very interesting. Yeah.
Cara, if I may, I know so many of your club members up there know us here in the 66th AD. And we did elect some great delegates, but I know the one you know most of all was reelected as our e-board rep, Tony Hale, with the most number of votes.
Yeah.
So that's wonderful. His great leadership, it continues. So I can report that from the 66th AD, at least Tony Hale was reelected as our e-board rep.
And yes, and he's an amazing chair of the resolutions committee.
Yes, which I know why so many people would know him in your club. And
So I guess, I mean, is Ben still on? Ben Allen? I see, I don't know if he's still here. He might want to say hello. I saw him before when he was there hanging out with his baby. Anyway, so hi, Linda. So
Hi.
If that's, anybody else doesn't have any great earth-shattering things to say, I thank you all for coming. I love you guys. Oh my gosh. I just really love everybody. It is so great to have such a wonderful bunch of people, you know, supporting you and being here with us and you know, doing what we can do all through this crazy, horrible year last year. And we're all still together. We're always all in it together. And love you all. Have a great Valentine's Day. Or what was it? Somebody saying Galentine's Day for us to have our girlfriends to hang out with, and happy President's Day, and see you all next time. Bye bye.
Thank you, Cara.
Cara, thank you.